Here's a massive challenge for you. How do you build new roads, parks, and schools for literally hundreds of millions of people who are flooding into cities? It's a huge undertaking. But what if the key to building the physical city of the future wasn't just concrete and steel, but an invisible, tradable right? Today, we're going to dive into a powerful financial tool that's quietly reshaping some of the fastest growing cities on the planet. All right, first, let's just wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this. What you're looking at is a massive urban boom in India. By 2030, the country's population is projected to hit 1.5 billion people. And get this, a staggering 42% of them will be living in cities. That's a huge leap from 31% back in 2011. This kind of explosive growth means you need new infrastructure, and you need it like yesterday. And all that growth, well, it creates what you could call the big squeeze. You see, all those new city dwellers need public services, but getting the land to build them is one of the biggest headaches for any government. The usual way of doing it is incredibly expensive, it almost always gets tangled up in legal battles, and it can take years, sometimes even decades. For cities that need to grow right now, that's a massive roadblock. Which brings us to the core puzzle, right? How can cities get their hands on the land they need for the public good, but do it quickly and affordably just to keep up with this incredible pace? Well, the solution is pretty ingenious, mainly because it forces us to completely rethink what it even means to own a piece of land. The answer is a concept called Transferable Development Rights, or TDR for short. It's basically a financial tool that creates a floating development right. It separates the potential to build from the physical land itself. Now, to really get how that works, we first have to understand a really fundamental concept in city planning. And that concept is the floor space index, or FSI. It's actually a pretty simple ratio that just tells you how much you're allowed to build on a piece of land. So, like the slide says, if you've got a 100 square meter plot and the FSI is 1, you can build a total of 100 square meters of floor space. It could be a single-story building or maybe a two-story building with 50 square meters on each floor. That FSI number, that's the key that unlocks the whole TDR system. Okay, so this is where TDR comes into play. A TDR certificate essentially takes that development potential we were just talking about, that FSI, and it literally detaches it from the land. You can almost think of it like a carbon credit, but for building cities. This right to build gets packaged into a certificate that can then be sold on the open market and used somewhere else entirely. So what you end up with is a marketplace that has two main areas. On one side, you've got the sending zone. This is where a landowner gives up their land for something public, like a new park. In return, the right to build on that land gets turned into one of these TDR certificates. Then you've got the receiving zone. This is an area the city has picked out for more dense development, and it's where those TDR certificates can be cashed in, so to speak. So how does this whole market actually work in practice? Let's break it down step by step, and you'll see how this clever idea helps cities get the land they need while also managing growth in a much smarter way. Let's just walk through the 4 steps here. First, a landowner voluntarily gives up their property because the city needs it to, say, widen a road. Step 2, instead of waiting ages for a cash payout, the city hands them a development rights certificate, a DRC. Step 3, a private developer across town who wants to build a taller building in a receiving zone goes and buys that certificate. And finally, step 4, that developer uses the certificate to legally add extra floors to their project. So the city gets land without a huge upfront cost, the landowner gets a valuable asset they can sell, and the developer gets to build more densely right where the city wants it. It's a win-win-win. Now, the really important thing to get here is that this isn't some kind of government subsidy. As this quote from the source material points out, this is a real market. The price of a TDR certificate goes up or down based on plain old supply and demand. That makes it a really flexible, dynamic tool that can adjust to whatever's happening in a city's real estate market. So that's the theory. But this isn't just an idea on paper. Oh no, this is actually happening, and it's being used at an incredible scale. So let's shift from the concept to the concrete and see how some of India's biggest cities are putting TDRs to work. And just look at how versatile this tool is. In Mumbai, a city where land is incredibly scarce, TDRs are used for just about everything, from widening roads and redeveloping slums to even protecting historic buildings. Ahmedabad is using them for public housing, while Hyderabad is applying them to build infrastructure and even to protect its lakes. And if you want to understand the scale we're talking about, just look at Mumbai. The city has generated TDRs equal to almost 13 million square meters of development potential. That is not a small pilot program. That is a massive, mature market that's become a core part of how that city actually grows. And it doesn't stop there. These systems are getting even smarter. Hyderabad, for example, took a huge leap forward by creating an online TDR bank. It's a digital platform that connects buyers and sellers directly, which makes the whole process way more transparent and efficient. It basically makes trading these development rights almost as easy as trading stocks. So, okay, TDR is clearly a powerful instrument. But, and this is a big but, it's not a magic wand. For a market-based tool like this to actually work and work fairly, you've got to have the right conditions in place. It all comes down to careful planning and some really smart governance. So, what's the secret sauce for a good TDR policy? Well, first off, you need a healthy real estate market where developers actually want to buy more building rights. The city also has to be really strategic about where it puts its sending and receiving zones to guide growth properly. The rules have to be crystal clear and consistent so people trust the market. And this is critical. You have to plan for that extra density. You can't just let developers build taller without making sure there's enough water, power, and transport to support everyone. And finally, the whole system just works better when landowners participate voluntarily. That's how you get that win-win scenario. And when you put all of this together, it leads to a much bigger question. As cities all over the world are facing the exact same pressures of rapid growth and tight budgets, could these invisible rights be a key part of the blueprint for the cities of tomorrow? It's a pretty profound shift when you think about it, using the power of the market not just to build bigger, but maybe, just maybe, to build smarter and more fairly for everyone.